Good evening. Welcome to the September 17th, 2024 school committee meeting. This meeting will be broadcast live and recorded by Foxboro Cable Access. Hi, everyone. Okay, we're going to roll right into public comment, and I believe we are blank at this point in time on public comment. I see no reaction from the gallery, so we're going to move right along to the approval of minutes. We have minutes in here from June 25th, 2024 meeting. It was a regular meeting.
Motion to accept the minutes from the June 25th, 2024 meeting as presented.
Second.
Okay, do we have any further discussion?
Okay.
Okay, moved by Mr. Canfield, second by Mr. Reuter. All in favor? And the minutes, I'm sorry.
I abstained.
One
'cause
abstain.
I was not not
Sure.
in attendance. Thank you.
So Ms. Thaxton's abstaining, and they're passed on a vote of 4-0-0. Okay, next we have superintendent update. Dr. Bardos.
Well, we are fully back in school, and all 5 schools have had such a great start to the school year, very smooth opening. It really, the excitement by kids has been energizing. And all of the principals and teachers that I've come in contact with, they've all said the same thing. It's just been a great start to the school year. Last week, we had our open houses with our elementaries. Tonight, right now, actually going on is the high school open house. And then tomorrow night and Thursday night, we have the Adjourn open houses. So that's just been a great way to hear feedback from parents too. I alternate every year from the elementary. So I was at the Taylor open house this past week. And a number of conversations that I had with parents, which were so great to hear, was their oldest child. We talked about Taylor and how wonderful of experience, but they brought into the conversation, a lot of them had their oldest child being a 5th grader at the Adjourn, and how they were nervous as parents with their children going to the Adjourn and going to middle school. And they're like, their child wasn't. And they've had such a great experience and so complimentary to the web program and the transition into the middle school. So it's a great opportunity to get feedback from parents in the community at Open House and to see the kids excited to show parents their classrooms and what they're doing and where they sit, their desk, and all of that too. So just really want to thank all of our elementary parents for coming out. We had a great showing that continues to show the support for our schools, and I'm sure we're having a great showing tonight at the high school, and look forward to seeing those at the middle school in the next couple of nights as well. A lot of work goes by our teachers to get ready for open house. You look in their classrooms, and you see all the student work up already, and they're only, we're 3 weeks in. So it's quite extraordinary, the work and efforts that are put into that. So that's great. Couple of things that I wanted to mention, just kind of sticking to the opening of schools. Our enrollment is very consistent with what it has been. You're talking within a dozen students from where we ended last year in June to where we are as of today with our enrollment. It's where we see any numbers, and again, it's like we're talking like maybe 20 students is the increase at the Adjourn. That's where we've seen those numbers, but they're very consistent at all of our other 4 schools. So as of today, we have 2,503 students that are in attendance. The other thing that I wanted to mention from a health standpoint is that it will be sent out tomorrow, an email with having a flu clinic that's in partnership with Public Health, and that will take place on Tuesday, October 1st at the Adjourn in the cafeteria. Registration is required, and that's so we know how many to expect to have the vaccines ready for the flu clinic. So again, an email reminder will be sent out about that. Another reminder that will be sent out tomorrow is by the technology department. This is the registration update that's done annually, the verification sheets by parents. At this point in time, we have less than half of our parents that have completed that. It's not due yet. We still have a number of days, but just wanted to mention it. Again, the reminder will come out tomorrow where you get your SNAP code, how to go about that. And it's really important that that is done because it's emergency contact information. It's about being able to have photo releases of students, if there's any pictures that are taken or put in any kind of newspaper or communicated out in any way, we have to have those annually updated. So in addition to emergency contact information, it does provide avenues for other things that we look towards. So that is important, so watch for that, and if you've not done the update for your student registration, please do that as soon as possible.
Just
Yes.
a little piece of feedback on that for the community at large. Don't be intimidated. They've done a great job on the mobile app, and I was able to do the whole thing on my phone. So thank you to technology for that.
Yeah, great feedback on that. And then if it's for the first time, you can walk through and how to register to do that as well. The other exciting thing is this is the time of year that our Spanish exchange program is taking place. So we have 14 students that are here from Valencia, Spain. Met them yesterday. They had already finished their whirlwind within New York, which usually they do that on the end of the trip. And so we have many host families here in Foxboro. They're hosting. Sarah, you're one of them, that's right. Which is such a great experience for the students that are hosting the friends from Spain, and then building those relationships, because they really do end up being lifelong friendships that they form. And then our students, we will end up having, I think it's 13 students that will go over in February to see them in Spain, which is exciting. But the two teachers that came with them last year was their first year to come over with them, because the other teachers that had done it for years and years had retired. So they were really excited to be back, and all of the things that they're going to be doing this week, which is things like going to Newport, Plymouth Plantation, being in class with our students, and lots of other cultural experiences that they will engage in. The other piece that I wanted to bring up is really to say thank you to the community and to our public health officials, and very specifically to our athletic trainer, Christine Dundon. She is a former Foxborough High School graduate. She is our athletic trainer with MGB, Mass General Brigham's. And as you know, because that's one of the things that you do as a school committee with our contract we have for our athletic trainer, we had a very scary situation with our student athletes that had collided during a soccer game last week, and the information was sent out, and we're so happy that they are okay. But at that time, when we think about the quick action and response from Christine, our athletic trainer, along with the rest of our athletic department, and then also from even community members that were in the stands, we were very fortunate to have had health officials that were in the stands that also came into quick action to really to be able to support our students and everyone there. So really our heartfelt gratitude to Christine as our athletic trainer, our athletic department, all of the people involved, and then also our community members that jumped in. And I wanted to share a quote from a part of an email that was sent from Michael Bellinger. He's the director of athletic training and sports medicine outreach. And in part of his email, it was said by him, "We are tremendously grateful to the Foxborough Athletic Department for being prepared for this emergency. Their compliance with the state laws for educating their coaches in CPR, providing an AED at all athletic events, and having the emergency action plan in place for the venue that was hosting the soccer game was a critical foundation that allowed Christine to perform her job on last Tuesday evening." So I think it really speaks, we take safety as our first priority, whether it's in classrooms, in schools, on fields. And that is a testament to us having those protocols and procedures in place. So again, very thankful that our players and the players at Canton as well, that everything turned out the way that it did. I think that the other thing I'll mention there, as far as CPR, we know how important it is. That is something we have CPR trainers with our nursing staff. They train our staff to become certified, and it's not just coaching, it's staff as well. And then even our students through their health classes become CPR certified at the high school. So we know the importance that it's there and that it makes a critical difference. So that's a lot of information. Any questions or comments?
I just have a comment. I want to thank the transportation department. I know that there's so much work going on in Foxborough right now on all of the roads. I'm being delayed every time I try to get someplace, but it seems like from what I've heard, just from the students and families that come in across my path, things have gone relatively smoothly with getting students to school and home safely. So like I said, as a person that drives through Foxborough many times a day, I can't imagine the amount of work that's going on right now, but it does seem like the transportation department has planned and is getting people to and from schools safely and efficiently. So thank you.
I actually am very thankful that you brought that up, because the first couple of days was rocky with the construction, as you're mentioning. And I know that I've talked with some parents too about that time, also even meeting with the executive director at the charter school because of buses and that. It was rocky the first couple of days. But to your point, Lynn and Linda in transportation, along with drivers, have worked really hard to smooth that out. And we always expect that at the beginning of the year. But at the same time, the construction, speaking with Chris Gallagher with the DPW, I know that was part of the selectmen's agenda last week as well. One other thing that I did not mention, and Dr. Donovan would be upset with me if I didn't, because we need school committee assistance when MASC comes in October. So that's something to think about when their visit. When that takes place, they need to meet with a couple of school committee members as part of that comprehensive visit, and it entails like 1 to 2 p.m. on Monday, October 28th. Sometimes they might ask the chair to meet, and it could even be via Zoom on the Sunday evening preceding the beginning of that visit. I know when I've done NEAS visits myself, we've had that, but so it could be virtually too, but we are going to need a couple of school committee meeting members to be part of those meetings as we get closer and we approach to that.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm sure at least one or two of us will be up to the challenge. Okay. Thank you. We're going to move right along to introductions here. We're going to introduce our new school committee liaison to the high school, and her name is Yasmin Bagosa. So thank you for being here. We're really excited to have you. You will have, certainly have an opportunity if you wanted to bring anything back from the high school or make an update or anything like that, you can bring it to here, so don't be shy. And then you will have a partner, and that'll be Stevie Strahan. Unfortunately, because you guys were chosen, she didn't have enough time. She's working tonight, but she'll be here in the October meeting. So I just want to thank you, because it's a big commitment, and you have big shoes to fill. But I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun and do a great job. Do you have anything you want to say? Sorry, put you right on the spot.
Not really, but I'm a junior in high school, and I'm in student council. I was in class council in the past. I've started my own club, which is Multicultural Appreciation Club, which we're starting next week for this year. We started that one last year, but we didn't do much last year.
Nice. Well, that's amazing. Hats off to you. Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
All
Welcome.
right.
Welcome.
Yes, we're glad to have you with us. All right, does anyone have any questions or comments before we move on?
I promise we're not as scary as we look up here, I promise.
All right, so we are a few minutes ahead of time on the agenda. I'm going to knock on wood quickly, but next up on the agenda, perfect timing, we have a school safety presentation by the Foxborough Police Department. And if you guys would all like to come up, and just a quick reminder to everyone, sometimes it's hard for them to pick up your voice on the mic unless you really deliberately talk into it. So if you could, that'd be great. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank
Welcome.
you for coming. This will be the second year we missed the high school open house, right?
Yeah.
But thank you for coming.
I'm
We
banned
appreciate
again
it.
from the house, all right? You ready? So how you doing? My name is Mike Race. I'm the police chief here in Foxborough. And I'm here tonight with Sergeant Meg Allen, Officer Godino, Officer Will Monterosso, and Officer Melissa O'Connor. And this is the team that works in our schools on a regular basis, not just in our district, but also in the Foxborough Charter School where we have students. So before we kind of get into the presentation, one thing that should really, really be stressed, number one is thank you for having us. Thank you, Dr. Berdows and Assistant Superintendent Stephanie Burrows. The partnership, and the board should just really know this, the partnership between the schools and this agency is transparent. It's every day. And the teamwork just never ends. We work all year round with the school department, their administration, with the principals, and everybody below. So whatever the schools is asking from the police department, we're there, we're accessible 24/7. And I just really want you to know, I want the residents to know at home that there's never a gap, there's never a reason why someone didn't know. We sometimes communicate an awful lot during the week on the small stuff because those are important. And I just have to get that out there because it's really how we operate. And as a police agency, when we talk about safety and security of our community, there is no greater population or demographics than the kids of Foxborough. So that's where our mission statement starts. And I just want the board and the residents at home to know that. To the point of actually kind of redesign the deployment of the police department to build this team that didn't exist years ago to primarily focus on our kids. So with that out of the way, I'm going to have each one of the officers do a very brief intro about who they are and what they do within the department. Sarge?
Again, good evening. You guys might recognize me. This is my 4th year in the schools. Sergeant Megan Allen from Foxborough, been on the department going on 6 years, been in the schools for 4. Can't seem to escape it, don't want to escape it. Love working in the schools, love the kids in town. Just to re-stress the chief's point, we really enjoy the partnership that we have with you guys at the school, so thanks for having us.
Hello, my name is Joe Godino. I recognize some of the familiar faces from last year and some new faces from this year. I have 19 years of police experience. This will be my 3rd year in the schools, and predominantly at the Ahern Middle School, and I also cover the Borough Elementary.
How you doing? I'm Will Monterosso. I'm an SRO as well. I have 22 years of police experience. So this is my 5th year as an SRO.
Melissa O'Connor. I have 16 years as a police officer, and I came from a different district where I was used to be the SRO there for 10 years. So I walk into this role in Foxborough with a little deeper of a connection and heart. My family lives in town, and my kids will be coming to Foxborough schools, so that makes it even more of a deeper connection for me. And I really consider myself blessed to be in this role and to work in collaboration with the school department as well as the police department.
Thank you.
So I did lay down the groundwork that you were going to give her an awful hard time as being the new person on the team, but
Yeah, that comes at the end.
okay, all right.
Yasmin is ready. Yasmin is ready to do that for you.
So one thing that is in place and has in place, and it is by statute, is the MOU between the Foxborough Police Department and the Foxborough Public Schools. This is a working document, but it has a lot of requirements that are mandated by the state that have to be met. Many of those mandates are the training, and specifically towards the SROs and the requirements about what they have to do, how they're trained, and additional training that is required. This is in above and beyond what a normal police officer does. The MPTC, what oversees the training for the state, has built specific curriculum with just the SROs. So collectively throughout the state, all the SROs go to training together. So that way they can obviously build partnerships, but they can also learn from each other and what's happening in the different districts and make sure that they're rolling out of the master general laws and those things are all in place and it's been standardized. And this document, when we talk about, and you've probably read it, it encompasses everything from school safety as well as training, information sharing, that's a big one. I want to be very clear that the police department stays in its lane. We are not there to discipline kids. We are never there as a muscle for the school. That never happens. We will not play that role. And we're there to support the school in a variety of different issues, especially when it comes to school safety. But we will never interact with the kids on a level that the administration has to do when it comes to discipline or any kind of conflict that is non-related to police department. We also, when we talk about information sharing, there are many times that information that or incidents that occur in the school, they stay in the school. Those, especially back to different districts or back to the courts, we only take information that's relevant to the juvenile justice system where we have to submit criminal complaints for actions, and that is only when we share the information with outside agencies or any other requirements that are set forth in the state. So I just make sure, and is there any questions with that MOU? Obviously, Dr. Bertels, if she's got a question, here it comes, and I get the email, we discuss it, and we make sure we're always on the same page. One of those other items is the selection process. So part of the selection process is when Melissa came on board, was bringing in the school. They are part of the interview process, they are part of the selection process, and Melissa had to present to the school officials in an interview process of what her skills were, her training were, and how she would be an asset to the community. So that's critical. I don't have ultimate say in assigning a SRO. It isn't a position where a union can force me by seniority. That never happens. These are hand-picked candidates who really desire to work in the schools, like working with kids, and strive every day to make our school system better. So this year we have a couple notable items I want to throw out there. Is when we tackled last year, we had swatting situations that were occurring across the state and across the nation. Well, one of the issues with that is when these occur, how are we able to get the information quickly to law enforcement, to fire, and to school administration? So when these were happening, we would take the calls. We would immediately respond through the 911 system, which is exactly how we should. But what we didn't know is that potentially in some scenarios, there had already been 15 or 20 that had occurred across the state. They had identifying copycat elements. So as a member of the Mass Chiefs School Safety Committee, I worked with the MASC Fusion Center, which I have a lot of connections through at Gillette when we're dealing with Homeland Security issues. And we've built a paging system in which 2 police officers and 1 firefighter from every single community is connected to a text message in case we have 2 or more swatting incidents happening in Massachusetts. So there's an immediate notification that 1, this is what happened, and 2, this is the way it went. So that way we can, 1, advise our staff and advise the school that if they were to receive a call very similar, we could deploy in a manner that would reflect the potential false alarm. So that has been a game changer, as a lot of the trends happen in different states. They pick different states, and they'll hit like Connecticut all day long, and by 10 o'clock, if departments aren't connected, you've already had 13 districts already hit, and they don't know about it. So in Massachusetts, we're ahead of that. So if I get that text message from the Fusion Center, 4 swatting calls, this or that, I can call Dr. Bertels. The SRO team is already aware, Shift is aware. We're still responding, and it's still real, but we can potentially downplay the response to impact the kids a little less if we know in advance that it has indications of being false. There's several other items we're going to talk about, and each one of the offices is kind of a specialist in that area. So one thing we have been rolling out in the last year or 2 is the threat assessment. I think, Brett, we had a conversation with that some time ago, and Sergeant Allen's going to talk about how collectively with the district and with the SRO and public safety, how we've really built this program in addressing these issues.
So something that came up this morning, the chief, our team, we were talking about the worst case scenario that anyone can imagine when they're sending a child to a school, and that is if there is a violent incident. And while we were talking, I started mentioning, we can certainly go over all the things that we're prepared to do, all of the things that we will do, the fact that we're well equipped to handle any type of violent situation. But as the chief pointed out, that's not really all we want to talk about. What we really want to talk about is prevention. So that's really where the behavioral threat assessment process comes in. So as the chief mentioned, we really started looking into this more a couple of years ago. The catalyst behind it was actually that year, our annual SRO in-service training that we went to. They had some special agents from the FBI who came and they were presenting on this very topic, behavioral threat assessment and management. At the time, Sergeant Collins, who was leading the team, had reached out to that agent and said, what can we do? How can we connect with you further on how to bring this to Foxborough, make sure we're doing everything we can, we're embracing all best practices here in Foxborough. They were very receptive to that. They had an entire team where they said we do these workshops very frequently, so we were able to set that up. And what ended up happening is, I think Foxborough, we rolled deep down to Bourne. We had the entire SRO team, we had the superintendent, we had principals and vice principals from every school, from the public school district as well as from the charter school. We all went. I think they were a little blown away, the FBI there, by how many people from Foxborough actually showed up. They had a couple from other towns too, but we stole the workshop and we made it all about Foxborough to figure out what we had to do. So really what we did was we learned about those best practices. And the whole idea behind behavioral threat assessment and management is essentially a systematic process where we kind of look at the difference between someone who makes a threat versus someone who might pose a threat. And what it really is it's when we see concerning behaviors. And I think historically when we have these tragedies happen, a lot of times we're seeing kids that fell through the cracks or communications that were never made. So what we are really embracing here in Foxborough, in addition to how we kind of operate on the day-to-day, when it comes to this very specific and very serious topic of behavioral threat assessment and management, we really have to take and embrace that multidisciplinary approach. So what we've learned is that we need to have a team that's prepared to review certain concerning behaviors. So essentially what happens is if a concerning behavior is presented by a student or someone in town, we have a process now where we investigate that concern and we develop a management plan for what we need to do. And a lot of times what we see is maybe there are mental health issues, there might be violence issues at home. Those are all things that we can manage between the schools, between all of their resources, between the police department and all of our resources. We can step in and provide services, provide support for a student, and again, make that determination between someone who's maybe making a threat versus someone who actually poses a threat. And again, make no mistake, we're prepared to deal with and pursue criminal charges against anyone who tries to pose a threat to our town or any of our kids. But for the most part, we're talking about diversion, right? So if we have someone who is acting out, who's demonstrating those concerning behaviors, if they don't actually pose a threat, but it's someone who maybe has a need that needs to be addressed, we can come together and come up with a plan to manage that. So that's a very brief overview of kind of that threat assessment process and where we are as a district. We're working together. I would give specifically Dr. Donovan at the high school a big shout out. He really pulled together some plans and some resources, and we've had a few of these where we've come together as groups. We've even had a few where we've reached out to our partners at the FBI and said, hey, what do you think about this? And they have just so many resources. They don't get over involved, but they say, maybe try this. Have you reached out to the counselor? Have you reached out to this person? And ultimately, again, it's about embracing this multidisciplinary approach between the schools, law enforcement partners, and so on.
Thank you, Saj. There was a directive to try to keep it under 30 minutes because when she gets going, we're in trouble.
It's all good stuff, and
So
it was
as a
perfect.
trend that we're seeing with our partners at the FBI, so people should know, is that Snapchat now is dumping all of their threats onto the FBI daily right now into their districts. And FBI in Boston is then doing all the profiles on them and then sending them out to the local departments. We're not getting all of the context associated with the threat, but they're coming fast and furious. So beware if you're a parent at home and your kid is making these on Snapchat. What's the rule of thumb with the internet? Who's got the quote, Joe? Joe,
Permanent
go.
and traceable. It's on the
Permanent and
internet.
traceable. It's always there, and we can find it. So it's really about, and we'll touch upon some of the classes that are taught by the SROs and the accountability aspect. So on a lighter note, we had our Junior Police Academy this year, which was a win-win, and Joe's going to take the lead and
Sure.
give us the breakdown on it.
So just some background on this. About 2 years ago, we did one for kindergarten, first grade. It was just an hour after school for 4 weeks. We kind of used that as some, what we could do to get involved with the community and the kids in the school. We kind of morphed that with some of our law enforcement partners. We're, reaching out, and there was a tremendous amount of hours that went into researching, planning, developing this youth academy for Foxboro residents. So we targeted the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade students because that's that middle school demographic where a lot of programs at the younger ages start to drop off for those kids before they hit high school. That usually 9th grade's when a lot of kids can start working because they're 14 or about to turn 14. So we wanted to target that demographic with the older kids because a lot of them be going to high school. We wanted to give them a firsthand experience of what the police department does, and we wanted to get some sort of interactive learning for them and some PT standards. So basically what we did is we started in January. We sent a QR code out with a little flyer. We started posting around the schools. We relied heavily on the staff at the Adjourn school to recommend kids to us. This first year we charged basically a fee of $150, but we let everyone know that, that covered shirts, shorts, hats, water bottles, but we let everybody know that the fiscal constraints, we didn't want anyone to be, left behind. So we did offer scholarships this year. I think we had over 10 students of the 30. So we ended up having 60 kids apply for this. Unfortunately, we gave preference to people who could make it for the full 2 weeks because we wanted to make sure we had the 2 weeks filled with the kids. So we ended up getting we actually had more than 30 that could to make the full 2 weeks. But however, I know a few kids can miss days here and there. So we ended up having 30 kids, and they ended up getting just about 60 hours of training. That training consisted of 2-hour block in the morning of different things. It was some days it was motor vehicle law, criminal law, constitutional law. There was a test that was given at the end of it. There was a PT hour block in the morning where we basically, I don't know if anyone was driving around, but you would have seen us on Payson Road marching and then running them over to the fields on Payson, where we did 45 minutes to an hour PT session that was put on by one of our officers, Stephen Hull. And basically we pushed them to the limits. Everything was scalable, everything was able to be modified for kids if they had any issues, but we definitely pushed them to the limits. And we took field trips to Boston Med Flight in Mansfield. We took a field trip to the State Police Marine Unit, where we took an hour boat ride out, and they were able to see the Boston Harbor. And we also took a field trip to Gillette Stadium, where they got the tour behind the scenes that not everyone gets to see. They saw some of our facilities. They received, you name it. Trying to think of some of this, first aid, CPR from the fire department. They had use of force. They learned handcuffing. They saw taser deployments. We actually had them out on Chestnut Street running radar, and we had it was very slow driven street that day. We taught them after that. We taught them basically, find the highest speed you got. We taught them how to write citations after. It was a very hands-on, full body approach to policing. There wasn't really anything they didn't see or get to experience. So we're working on that for the next year, so we ended up graduating 30 kids. We had to utilize the Adjourn Middle School for our graduation. Officer O'Connor ended up making a little highlight video for all the kids, so maybe we can share that if you guys haven't seen it. We can definitely share that for you. And we're actively already talking about how we're gonna make it better for next year. So we're working on a 2-week window again. Again, we rely heavily on the middle school to recommend those kids to us, and we're looking forward to it, so.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
30 kids, I mean, that's a good turnout. That's amazing.
It was so good. They were so, and there was discipline. There were requirements. It wasn't just send them here. They had to meet it, and they had to volunteer. They couldn't be voluntold by their parents. They kind of wanted this.
Yeah.
So it was great. And
I met one of the students actually at a party, and he was just raving about it. So when I heard everything that you just said, I was like, wow, this kid went through the ringer and he still came out of it after
yeah,
graduation, raving about it.
They
That's
definitely
amazing.
left sweaty every morning, and we gave them change of clothes, and we told them this wasn't like a chill with a cop type of academy. This was a full-on hands experience where there was PT standards, and there was a certain standard we were looking for the kids. And to their credit, they all met our expectations and then some. So
There was a lot of pride in that student when he was telling me about the program. So thank you so much. That's awesome.
So then I'm going to have Melissa talk about the national conference out in Phoenix where the SROs attended for the first time.
Yeah, so like Chief just mentioned, Officer Godino, Officer Monterosso, and I, we went to Phoenix in July for a week-long training. This really was a premier event that brought together school safety professionals from across the country to exchange knowledge, strategies, best practices for protecting our students in our schools. Just a small tidbit of some speakers we saw. We were able to see 2 SROs from Newtown, Connecticut, and they were courageous enough to share their experience of the aftermath of a school shooting. So extremely moving, to say the least. Attending this conference was essential for us to provide valuable training on topics such as crisis management, de-escalation, and something I think is the most important part of our job is creating strong, good relationships with our students. Lastly, I think this conference really fostered networking opportunities for us with professionals and experts and our peers for helping us stay current with trends and policies to ensure the most important thing, safer schools. And we really hope we can go to this next year.
It's already approved. I know, it's already filling up now. Was it Dallas?
Dallas, Texas,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, Phoenix in the summer. I told them they got the short end of the stick on that one last year.
I don't think Dallas is much better.
It just sounds better,
as
at least. So the next thing we want to talk about, and you're all familiar with, is the handle with care. And we just want to ensure parents at home that there are things that happen in Foxborough on weekends, off hours, that are not pleasant, that kids are exposed to. So it's critical that, and I'll let Will explain that process internally, how we get that message to the schools. So when the kids show up to that environment that is stable, safe, and structured, that the staff there have a little bit of a heads up, notice that something might have not gone so well last night. So I'll let Will.
So the Handle with Care is a program that we as a team have implemented probably the last 3 or 4 years, but more heavily the last school year, we've used it a lot. And so basically when there is a police officer on duty here in Foxborough and a call comes in for service, and that call has a student as part of the call for service, whether that student was part of the incident or witnessed an incident that could be traumatic in any kind of way, what we do is we rely heavily on the shift to provide that information to us. So we'll either get a voicemail, a text message, or an email saying, we went to 123 Main Street, there was a student that goes to the Adjourn, it's concerning, and this is the report. So we'll read the report. Once we do that, then we'll reach out to the administrative team at all the schools, or a school, and let them know, listen, this student last night or the day before was part of an incident at their home, and it's always with minimal information and confidentiality in the utmost for those families, right? So I have an email that Sergeant Allen drafted, and it basically goes, good afternoon, I'm writing to provide you with a Handle with Care notice on behalf of student. Last week, police responded to an incident in which that student was present and affected by the incident. Please consider handling that student with extra care support at this time. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to support the school or this family, and please don't hesitate to reach out to any questions. Thank you. So that is what the administrators get at the school, limited information, confidentiality, but if you see little Johnny, he's down, he's acting out, this might be the reason for that, right? So we all know, we're all parents, or know about parents that you know your child, and if you send them to school and the teachers see something that is not right with Johnny, this is the reason for it. So if any of these students ever need other services, we're here also to provide those services for them or get them in contact with any services that they might need. So that it's a twofold tool for us.
That's great.
Thanks, Will. Now I'll kind of darken it up a little bit. Again, school safety is everything. So this year, Dr. Bertos is making sure that through synergy, that all of our staff are trained because the turnover happens on a regular basis of what to do in case we have a critical incident. It's something that we have to have. And the philosophy that we've collectively come together is, listen, we got to train the staff. We got to train the teachers, okay? You got to buy us a minute, maybe buy us two, okay? And the teachers are everything. And they are absolutely, when I say all in on training, they're all in. They're great, and we participate in it. So that's coming up in the next month. But sadly, in law enforcement, we always would like to be ahead of the curve, but sometimes things happen, and then we're reactive. But the one thing is we can't have something happen twice. So one of the trainings that the Foxborough Police Department took on is we really wanted to find a way that if there was a critical incident, like an active shooter in our school, how can we close the gap and stop the threat immediately or as fast as humanly possible? So there's a lot of factors that go into that. One of the things is how do we close on a target that potentially has an assault rifle with a .223 round that's gonna go right through your bulletproof vest and come out the back, okay? That's a big ask, but that's what we got paid for. But we can do better, and there's technologies out there. So if you watch TV and you see SWAT teams lining up on a door and they do an entrance on a door, more than likely they've had time to set up, they've been able to gear up, and they're then able to take their equipment, some of it weighing 35 to 40 pounds. You have someone designated as the shield officer, and then they go in and they execute the response or the action. That cannot occur. We will never wait for that timeline. All the officers are trained to go immediately, whether one team, two, three, or two or three. Whatever you get, you're going to do. So we reached out and found out through the MPTC that there really isn't SHIELD training for the active shooter officer responding to calls on a regular basis. There isn't a set curriculum. All of our firearm training and our use of force is all spelled out by the state. So we had to look far, and we looked really far, all the way down to Miami-Dade County SWAT team, where their SWAT teams roll every single day, executing warrants, doing school safety stuff, and brought them up here, a whole team, and they trained us for 3 straight days, over 1,000 hours on SHIELD techniques, and we were very fortunate. Schneider was able to give us the building as well, and we could build real-life scenarios, active shooter scenarios, with simunitions, and then we took that technology down to the range and live fired with it. So one thing school teachers love is volunteers. So just to give you an idea, if you were carrying a 35-pound rifle and you were closing in on a hallway, you'd only be able to hold this for probably about 4 minutes. So since you're a junior man, feel that. What does that weigh?
20 pounds.
15 pounds. So I'll go back to the mic. So that 15-pound shield is in every police officer car, and that'll stop a .223 round or a 5.56. So if there is an active shooter in our schools and there is someone with a rifle, the officer can close down in the hall. That will protect them, and they can return fire and stop the threat. That is probably not happening anywhere in Massachusetts, but that's what we're going to do for our kids. It's everything. They've been trained on it, and we were very fortunate through the Department of Justice, our JAG grant. We won an award, and then through the budget process, the town funded through the CIP the additional funding for those shields. They're big money, and they only last 5 years, but it's worth every penny. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention that we're coming, we're not stopping, and we got a way to get there. So now we can lighten up again. So obviously the SROs are also teachers. So they have been working on curriculum that they could work with the kids with. I will say the school schedule and every single hour is accounted for, so it is tough to get any free time, I know. So we do some things, and I think it's important that the parents know some of the classes that we teach to the kids that are like relevant for safety, and I think,
Yeah, sure.
Joe? you
So
can
one
start.
of the presentations that we do is a bus and pedestrian safety presentation for kindergarten, first grade, but up to fourth grade students here for the public schools. Actually, next week, we're actually starting some of those at some of the schools. We've been doing it earlier and earlier in the school year. They used to kind of do it, in October around Halloween, because a lot of kids would be out, but now we do it earlier in the year because kindergarten, first graders, some of them the first time they're on buses, first time they're hearing the big word of pedestrian, and they look at us kind of like sideways, like, what is that? So our presentation with them is, interactive, obviously, where we go over the signs of the road, the ones that pertain to pedestrians. We go over the safe distance to stay away from the school bus. And last year was the first year we did it in conjunction with the transportation department, where they came and they observed and they gave us some feedback of what to add and what to include in the presentations, because we tell the kids, if the bus driver blows the horn, that means to stop, pick your heads up and look around. We tell them that when the bus comes, the doors open, the lights are flashing, the bus driver will give them the thumbs up sign, and that's so the kids know that they can safely board the bus. And that's things you learn by communicating with your transportation directors. I don't think we knew until last year that the bus drivers are all instructed to give the thumbs up. I know they're instructed to, if there's ever a car that passes them, to blow the horn. So that was just a little tweak we made last year. But then we get into pedestrian safety, how to walk on the road, where it's safe to cross the road, and stuff like that. So we have a fun kind of interactive presentation with them. We get them laughing. And it's just for a chance for us to get into the classrooms and not disrupt everything, because sometimes we walk around, the kids all take notice of us. So we usually get them at the cafeteria at recess, but this is one of the ways we get into the elementary schools. And Officer Will talk about one of the presentations we do at the middle school.
So we've started a social media safety and a juvenile accountability program that we gear toward the middle school. So in the Ahern, we start in the 5th grade level and go all the way to the 8th grade level. And what we do is we teach kids about online safety. We tell them the do's and don'ts. And one of our main points that we get to them is that we don't want you to be a victim, but we also don't want you to be an offender, right? So we give them all the tidbits and all the information they need not to be a victim or offender. And the big talking point that we have is that everything you do online is permanent and traceable. So again, we probably go over that 15 times in the presentation. By the end of it, all the kids know it, they repeat it. Sometimes they've seen me in the hallways and be like, traceable, permanent. So it sticks. Those two things stick, right? And then the last few years, administrators have asked us to get more into the juvenile accountability, right? So we go into how in Massachusetts, we're able to be criminally charged at the age of 12. And most kids don't know that. They think that anything they do, they can't have any consequences. So we go in there, we teach them that at 12, things get real. You can get criminal charges against you. And we do that, again, it's not a scare tactic. We never go in to try to scare them. We want to give them information so they are less likely to make a mistake. And we know kids all make mistakes, right? And what I like to tell the kids is that if you make a mistake in school, it's like a little bubble. If you make that mistake in school, you can learn from it, right? What we don't want you to do is make that mistake out in the real world where there isn't people that can help you out of that mess. So that's what we teach them. So we've been doing that at the Ahern, 5th and 8th grade, and I'm not sure if you know, but I'm assigned to the charter school, so I've done that at the charter school as well. I'm also assigned to the IGO elementary school. So we each have an elementary school assigned to us, and so we do our bus presentations there individually, and then we as a team go into the Ahern and do the accountability and social media presentations together.
Awesome.
So spinning off of that, when we get to step back from the law enforcement aspect of the SRO program, we also, and this team really leads the charge of all the community engagement they do outside of school and with kids throughout town. And Sarge, this is all yours. This is yours.
I'll keep
just
this
to go
one
over a couple.
even more brief, I promise.
But the list is long, and
It
it's
is.
good people know that we're doing this as well.
So I think what we're really talking about is community policing, right? And community policing is a huge part of the Foxborough Police Department, but obviously it's kind of concentrated with this group right here because we have the privilege of working closest with our juveniles in town and all of our kids. So there's a lot of things that we do. I think most notably, parents at home are probably familiar with like our High Five Fridays. But one of the bigger things too that we kind of really started rolling out last year is these guys have really taken the charge with the Protect and Serve lunches. So you guys may not have seen them, but your kids have definitely seen these guys in chef hats, serving out pizza on Fridays. They'll go to different schools at different points throughout the year. In the elementary schools, the kids go nuts for it. Same thing with the High Five Fridays. We have benefited from a good partnership with the Gillette Stadium. So sometimes during our High Five Fridays, we'll get some of the Patriot cheerleaders and Pat the Patriot. I almost said Pat the Patriot to come and join us to give high fives to the kids, and it's always something fun. And one of my favorite parts, honestly, is it's not just the kids, but I love seeing some of the parents in the car when they're doing the drop off, getting excited to drop their kid off. Because again, I think the whole idea behind community policing is that we want to remind everyone in the community, but especially our kids, that they can trust us, that we're here for them, we're here to serve them, we're here to keep them safe, we're here, for them to just come up to and tell us about their day. It doesn't necessarily have to be a safety issue or a well-being issue, but we just want to be another trusted adult in these kids' lives, ultimately. So we do that through a variety of other things, and I'll just list them off quickly. We help out.
You probably have them all memorized.
Oh, it's all up
This
here.
is just a couple.
We help out with, securing details for the football games. Our SROs try to volunteer to work those as much as possible, again, because they're familiar with the kids. Same thing with the school dances. But we also do things outside of those, like career days at school. So we try to, essentially, what I usually tell the schools every year is we will be there for anything that we get invited to. So for, the charter school usually has a block party once a year where they block off part of their parking lot and they throw a big family block party. And, we've gotten invited to that. The SROs will serve food, they'll go out, they'll go to the booths with the different kids. We also, again, one thing that we do for the charter school that's a little bit different that Officer Will organized is we have kids there who come from all 22 different communities. So we've had a day where we invite all of the SROs from those communities to the charter school. And we actually, one year when we did it, we had all of their cruisers lined up, and we had like 20 different cruisers lined up in their bus circle, and all the kids got to go meet their SRO from their town that they don't necessarily know because they come to school here in Foxborough. But again, those are just some of the things that we're doing. Officer Will has offered to throw a comfort dog day at the charter school, so I'm guessing now that cat is out of the bag, no pun intended. The dog's out of the bag. We'll probably have to bring that to the public school as well. So again, we've got a lot of different police departments in the area that have these big and small fluffy comfort dogs. So, and those are always a hit with the kids. So if we can, pool together our resources, all the great networking that these guys are talking about, that's just another thing that we bring in. And if it's field days, flag days at the schools, anything, like I said, if we get invited, we're there.
And to expand on that, it's pretty good, but we do like the bid auctions. And one of the things the Police Relief Association has taken upon themselves, where the officers in the whole department, they pay so much money per week into an association, and they actually do a scholarship for the high school seniors. That's always, and we just hand it off to the school and say, hey, tell us the person who meets the credentials. And so Special Olympics, all the things that impact kids, we're there for. So
It's pretty much year round, I'll say that. It's so many things that it's at least once a week these guys are doing something above and beyond just typically walking around the school. These guys are in the school buildings every single day. They're they're doing a lot more behind the scenes too. They're their own court prosecutors through the juvenile court. They handle all sorts of discovery requests, all sorts of police activity that ties them up as well, criminal investigations, crimes committed against children, all of that. So to give these guys a quick shout out, they are busy just about 100% of the time. But again, it's a very rewarding position that we all get to be in, and we're very grateful for it.
And lastly, we are 1 year into our body camera program, probably one of the few communities in this area that run them. We've had no issues with any of our schools with situations. We don't record all the time, especially when you're just interacting with kids. If it's a criminal matter, then the officers have the discretion to turn it on, and then we have it. So just wanted to circle back on that one, and that's essentially... That's it. We're already 10 minutes over, I know. I get yelled at every time, but...
It's okay. No,
Okay.
as a parent and as someone who answers to the public as far as what people do for safety, it is such a hot button item. I appreciate each and every one of you coming here, taking your time. You all clearly have so much passion for our students too, which I just appreciate so much. So, I don't want to say stay all night, but I love it. You have such important stuff to share, and you probably could go on and on all night, but we appreciate you guys coming and sharing that. Any other comments from anyone or questions?
I do. We can't keep our kids in a bubble, right? As much as we want to as parents. Or as a community, we can't keep it in a bubble. And we know that, and we hear that all the time. Sorry, Paul. Paul's telling me to speak closer to the mic. Thank you for continuing to look for ways to keep our kids' lives as normal as possible, but as safe as possible as well. The next thing I'd like to say is there are not a lot of people in attendance here tonight. I have no idea who is watching this tonight. If you are watching from home, I would challenge you to ask a friend or a neighbor or another family member to watch the recording of this school committee meeting, the last 30 minutes, so that you know what this incredible team is doing, how strong the partnership is with the schools in our community. Because as Sarah said, there's a lot of information. We know you guys could go on all night, and we would love to hear it. Unfortunately, the rest of the agenda might suffer because of that, but if anybody watching this tonight, if you all just ask one person to watch this segment, and then they ask another person to watch this segment, you will feel much better, hopefully, or you'll feel even more confidence. That's a better way of putting it. You'll feel even more confidence in the work that is happening to make our schools safe and our community safe. So thank you.
And Rob, just to expand on that, is if people at home have questions, they can reach out to the police department directly. And the door's always open and the phone's always on, so no question's a bad question.
That's awesome. Great point.
I'll echo what Mr. Canfield said and just say thank you. Every year you come, I learn many new things. And part of that is also because you, under your leadership and your whole team's leadership, you're committed to learning new things, honestly. If you were to go back and look at, the first time we had this update, and we were so grateful for it, you're doing all that same great work, but on top of it, more and more and more, and you guys just get better and better every year and more creative. In fact, actually, I don't think there's ever been one of these updates where I didn't at one point have a tear in my eye or a shiver down my spine just hearing what you all do, and thank you. And then lastly, SRO O'Connor, thank you for choosing Foxborough. As one of our former long-term school committee members would say, we're so grateful you came to the community and joined this very experienced team. That's all I got, Chair.
That's okay. Don't apologize. It's all good stuff. Thank you so much. You took time out of your already busy days to be here, but it was just such a great chair. Thank you. And thank you for all the effort you put in. You all came with notes, and everything was so well done. So thank you for all the preparation that you clearly did before you even got here. Really appreciated.
We have the 3-hour version, but we were told that we can't do that.
We are very fortunate.
Email it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. That was awesome. Great point, Rob. Everyone just take tonight's meeting and share it and see if we can make it go viral. That's great. So next, we're going to go to approval of student club and activity accounts. And we are going to have a vote on this as well.
So I'll start with it. So part of the policies and procedures for the student activity accounts is the annual approval by the school committee of the student activity clubs. And that's for middle school as well as the high school. So in your packet, you do have a current list of the middle school and high school clubs. The other thing that needs to be voted on is the establishment of the maximum balance that may be on the checking account for both the middle school and the high school. So for this year, the maximum balances are requesting to remain the same, and that is $20,000 at the Adjourn Middle School and $25,000 at the high school. So if nobody has any questions regarding it, or if you do have any questions, I'm certainly open to answer them.
I'm scanning this. Yasmin, I'm wondering, what was the name of your club again? Is it on here? Cultural Appreciation Club, and it is represented on this, correct?
I was scanning it as well, and I wasn't sure that I saw it on there.
I'd like to make sure we make an amendment and add that on for them, correct?
Unless they have it as a different name.
Where it's
on
brand
here.
new.
Or one of the discretionary clubs.
It could be that it's one of the discretionary
Okay.
clubs, and so, as you know from
New
past,
things.
we have students that will come forward at times, and it'll be one that it'll start, and then we'll see if it gets traction, and then it becomes a permanent club going forward. Sure.
Just, she started a club. I think it's awesome. I was trying to find it. That's great.
Oh,
I did make a note of that club.
I was going to make a motion unless there was a question.
All right, go ahead.
I just have, are we doing 2 motions or 3 motions? Is it one for the middle school limit or minimum?
I think you can just
Or
do a
maximum?
vote on the approval of the clubs and then approval of the checking account balances.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Rob.
you.
Madam Chair, will you entertain a motion?
I will.
Then in terms of I'll handle the amounts. I move to approve the maximum balances for the checking accounts at the middle and high schools. For the Adjourn to be $20,000 and the high school to be $25,000 for student activities and clubs for FY25 as presented.
Second.
All right, any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we have Mr. Reuter motion, Nate second, all in favor? And we have a unanimous vote to pass. Thank you very much,
And then,
everyone, and thank you all for your work.
you want a motion for the clubs
Yeah,
as presented?
you have to be approved,
Okay.
the list of clubs each year. It's part of
Yeah.
MGL 71, Section 47.
No, I appreciate the clarity. Thank you for that. I move that we accept the FY25 Adjourn Middle School Student Activity Clubs and the FY25 High School Student Activity Clubs as presented here tonight.
A second?
Great, okay, motion by Brent, seconded by Michelle, all in favor? And we have another unanimous vote. Thank you again for that.
Thank you.
All right, so we are on to the next item on the agenda, which is to appoint the delegate to the delegate to the MASC convention. This delegate would be a voting member, and this would be on the Friday night, the last evening of the convention. And as far as I know right now, it's Michelle and I attending the convention. Is anyone else planning to attend? Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to ask Ms. Michelle Thaxton if she would mind being the delegate for the second year in a row. I do have a conflict that night, so
Yes.
if you would like to, if you
that's
would
fine.
like to do that, and that would work for you, and you'd be willing, I'll take my name out of the hat. If somebody would like to officially motion, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't mind. I move that we appoint Committee Member Thaxton as delegate to the MASC convention for the Foxborough School Committee for 2024, 2025.
Right.
Second.
Motion by Brent, seconded by Nate. Any further discussion on this? All in favor of Michelle? And that is 500. Thank you again.
Bring up Michelle.
What? Yeah,
I said thank you for doing it, and thank you for attending.
for doing that, Michelle. I really appreciate that. All right, now we have the Plan for Success Action Plan 24-25. I'm losing my voice. I'm sorry.
So our plan for success, we are in year 4 of this plan, which seems really extraordinarily fast as far as the time and when we put the plan together. We had a very long presentation in June and reporting out on the action plans from that 3rd year. And very typically, what districts will see in the last year of their plan, whether it's a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, we had started out, if you might remember, those that were here, that it was going to be a 3-year plan, but because we were finishing during COVID, we ended up going with a 4-year plan. So not surprising, as we mentioned in June as well, we're really seeing the fruition of our work. And we're at that point in time where the plan will sunset in June. When we look back to all of the different objectives that we set and what we will complete by June, that's really where our target and our focus is at this point in time with each of those 4 pillars and all of the initiatives that are well underway as we are in year 4 of this plan. So as we enter into this last year of the plan, we're going to be focusing on what are the objectives that we've fully met? What are things that really are worthy of continuing on when we start to think about that next plan going forward? What will that plan look like when we will address it? You'll see that a little bit in the next agenda item too, even with one of my goals. And it really is reflecting the progress to date and identifying that work that's, again, part of our practice and where we need to go going forward. So when we look at those 4 pillars and we look at where we want to be, for instance, with facilities and infrastructure, by June, we've talked a lot about implementing long-term plans when it comes to that technology plan and being able to sustainability. We reported out on that in June of bringing that together where we are when we think about the sustainability from a technology standpoint and laptop deployments for students, for staff, for our interactive displays and all of that. A lot was said in June in that full plan that's fleshed out and available. So we feel really good about where we are when we look at that first pillar, when we look at school safety. Tonight, you heard so much of the wonderful partnership that we have with the police department and fire as well. We are extremely fortunate in this town, which again, it was really well demonstrated this evening. But it continues. So one of the things that's new as of right now when we think about facilities and operations and school safety, so we have bidirectional amplifiers, which are, when you think about the cinder blocks of buildings and for public safety to be able to communicate. We did it at the high school last year and putting those bidirectional amplifiers in place. That's taking place at the Adjourn right now. And that's for the communication with public safety. So that should be finished up by the beginning of October. So that's something that we're seeing. We talked about, the man traps, as we call them, in each of the buildings and finishing those up at the end of last year. In each of the buildings, school guard glass, all of those kinds of things. So a lot of that work has been done. Some of the other things we're focusing on that's not even really outlined here when we think of facilities is the tennis courts are being resurfaced. So by Friday afternoon, that will be open to the community and having those resurfaced. We know we had some community members last year that even reached out to us about that. And so we were able to do that. Took a little bit longer, but excited that you'll see a difference on the tennis courts for sure. And as a tennis player, I know how much, Nathan, you would appreciate that as well. MSBA. So we've submitted, as you know, for the 3rd time for the Taylor School. We'll hear in December what the outcome of that will be. Today, myself, Karen, Bill, and Robert, we participated in an MSBA meeting. Post-occupancy is part of, it wasn't part of the different steps along the way with the MSBA project for the borough back when we started it, but they like to go in and do a post-occupancy assessment to find out from a school design what's worked well when you think about like all of the parameters that we have to follow, and then how it's working after the project's done. So we opted and we volunteered to be part of that meeting today to learn a little bit more, even though we're not required to do it, and we're going to participate in that post-occupancy project program, if you will, and so that will be beginning the week of October 7th or 8th, whatever day that is, I forget. And that's going to include surveying our parents of the borough. Mr. Worth will send that survey out from the MSBA to get from a parent perspective, from a staff perspective, how the building is. We're looking at design, we're looking at functionality, how things that have worked really well, any changes that we've made. You know, as one example, when we started that project, the immediate example that comes to mind is the technology computer lab that was going to be right where the old auditorium was, and that we were going to have this computer lab, but we weren't one-to-one at that time, and how things changed and where we had to rapidly become one-to-one, then a computer lab became an obsolete need at that point. But we've been able, it's a great example of how we've been able to repurpose that space that's there. So they'll come, they'll do a full day site visit, they're going to be watching arrival, they're going to be watching dismissal of students, they're going to be looking at the educational spaces of the building, but it's all to be able to inform design and processes going forward. So we didn't have to do that, but we'll get a report back at the end of that, which again, we're always interested in learning and reflecting and how we can do better and think about what we've done really well. They don't have many renovation additions like they did with ours, so they're really excited to come back and to see how the building is functioning. And we're also hopeful that we'll hear good news in December on the Taylor. So as far as facilities and infrastructure, it was mentioned before, I don't want to be redundant, you know, when it comes to school safety, the Synergy 911, all of the trainings we continue to do annually with any new staff. So that's something that we don't lose sight of. All of the other examples that were there, that again is incorporated within our plan. And when you see the school improvement plans from the principals in the near future, you'll see even more concrete examples that might be more specific to their building. I'm sure you will hear from Mr. Stanton, his hope for the MSBA is the example. Yes. In December. Any question on Pillar 1 for facilities and infrastructure? Okay, as far as Pillar 2, teaching, learning, and pedagogy, that is definitely something that we've talked a lot about with the DESE academies, all of the curriculum work, the initiatives that we've had. So much of that you see is ongoing. Some things kind of complete, but is it really ever complete? It's really not. But it's a way of doing business. It's our practice that goes forward. So as far as just any other specific highlights, just as reminders, Stephanie, you can mention those.
Sure. If you think back to our presentation in June, we shared the Inclusive Practices Playbook. The Inclusive Practices Playbook really solidifies and summarizes what we believe are best practices around universal design for learning, multi-tiered systems of support, and co-teaching practices. As we were moving away from our participation in those DESE, MTSS academies for social emotional learning, and then also for UDL and co-teaching and MTSS in general, we wanted to make sure that we had a resource that we built for our Foxborough staff that they could refer back to. So much like the Synergy training that we're now doing underneath Pillar 1, it's become part of our onboarding process with new staff. When we welcome new teachers this August and new education assistants, we roll out that Inclusive Practices Playbook with all of our new staff. and we make sure that they're familiar with it, that they know that they don't have to learn it from cover to cover before we welcome kids into the district, but that they know that it's a resource for them, and these are the practices that we value. So as we move away from those academies, that's something that we're going to be hanging on to as our menu of best practices. In addition, we talked in June about common curriculum documents and establishing a common curriculum library. I am very excited to announce that it is up and live on the district website, which makes me very happy. I look at it every once in a while, but we launched it last week. I'm really proud of that work, and I do have to thank our curriculum directors, our department heads, have accomplished in a year what can sometimes take school districts 5 years, if not 10 years. It was a massive undertaking, and really the instructional leaders that we have in this district are amazing. They corralled their departments together and got those maps up and live, and we're really proud of that. That was a big ask in preparation for our NEASC decennial visit as well. So we're well prepared a month in advance of that decennial visit, and it's something that NEASC will be looking for. Another big item underneath this pillar is, it's not necessarily listed as a goal, but it is something that we added into our plans for this year. We're implementing the new IEP. That wasn't something that was in place when we wrote this plan for success years ago, but it is something that we began the work last year. Our director of student services made sure that we had IEP team leads in each building that were able to support staff as we transition to the new IEP format. And then we're also, one of the things that we're doing in our PLCs this year on district-wide professional development days is making sure that our staff are confident with that new document and also confident with how it plays with and speaks to the inclusive practices playbook and all of the other teaching, learning, and pedagogy additions that we've made over the course of this plan. And then lastly, there's a number of universal screeners that we've adopted, we've implemented, we've trained staff on how to implement that screener, how to unpack the data, and also what to do with it once we've taken a look at that data, what those next steps are, in our FastBridge dyslexia screener, and also in our Panorama SEL screener. We've done a significant amount of work with making sure that that's a part of the MTSS process and a part of our action steps moving into our classrooms and supporting kids on what they need throughout the school year. So we're really proud of that. That spills over into Pillar 3, the well-being pillar, our SEL assessment. That's our Panorama screener. If you remember, back in June, we did an audit of our approach to social emotional learning within classrooms, the support and the structures that we were using with our mental health teams across elementary, middle, and high school. We analyzed the curriculum that we're using and identified which tier that curriculum was going to be used for across multi-tiered systems of support. And we're continuing that work in the upcoming year. We're making sure that our staff, counselors, and classroom teachers alike are comfortable with that SEL screener, with the data that we're getting from that, and also with the materials and resources that they have at their disposal, whether that be Responsive Classroom or the Panorama Playbook. We're really making sure that in this final year of the plan, our teachers are comfortable with the resources and they know what to do when they get data about one of our students. They know what to pull from and what actions to take next. Anything that I missed?
No, I think that there's so many, when you really get down into the weeds, so many different examples when we think about well-being and healthy minds and healthy bodies, the curriculum work, on our, as an example, our Safe Touch lessons that start with as early as second grade, that go to third, that go to fourth. I know, I serve on our Child Sexual Abuse Awareness Committee for the town, and that was something last week at that meeting, and being able to say that we go back and we revamp our curriculum, but we look at all aspects of that. And it is a direct connection to healthy minds, healthy bodies, and how we're supporting students and giving them the tools that they need outside of school as we prepare them for the road that they have ahead of them, right? In so many different aspects when it comes to belonging, when it comes to academics. And that's really one of the things we see, that overlap between Pillar 2 with teaching and learning and pedagogy, and then the well-being. But also then it really intertwines with that last pillar when we think of diversity, equity, and inclusion. There was so much overlap that we would struggle to say, well, which pillar is it? It's both. It's all. It's so interconnected. So when we look at that last pillar with diversity, equity, inclusion, whether it comes back to the equity tool and identifying bias and curriculum resources that teachers are using, whether it's the tools we're using when we're walking through classrooms and having teachers to think about, like, all of my students in my classroom, what does this look like so everyone feels as though they belong? What does the lesson or the greater curriculum unit look like? So it's really looking at a different lens. Our book studies that we had last year, continuing with book studies, and some of those being teacher-led, some of those last year, we co-led. So that is something that teachers are very much interested in. So we will continue with those book studies. It's ongoing work, and it's continually reflecting and refining on that. So it's hard to say it's completed because it's not. It just might look different. But we fully anticipate, as we do go into a new plan, that we're going to see some of these greater objectives where they encompass each other and they're not separate. But I think that that's a process. One of the connections that I made in my own mind in thinking about this, and some of you will remember, when we had a separate technology plan, and then we had the separate strategic plan. And then it got to the point to when those started to sunset, there was so much overlap that it didn't make sense. But we were in a different place. And so that became one. And so as we look forward and the goals going forward with the next plan for success, whether that's a 3-year plan, whether it's a 5-year plan, we don't have the answer to that right now. I think we need to get into that work, see where we are, and then focus on where we still have a lot more work to do. So that's kind of the overview. So the action steps in year 4 really are putting more into practice and then seeing where we are in June of 2025. But before that point, really starting to get the work started for the next plan.
It's like a living document. It's always being added and changed, and everything's sort of always spilling over as far as what our crossover with our needs and stuff. So, yeah, that's great.
I do have a couple of questions. First, in the first pillar, so thank you, by the way. Forgot that part. Thank you. Sorry, Paul. I'll put it closer. In the first pillar, if I can find it, there's a reference under resources to reallocation, reassignment of resources. What is meant by human resources? So it's on page 5 is the first pillar.
Some of the people that are the point people in leading that. So when we think about safe arrival and some of the staff members of what they're doing when they're calling people to see why their student is not in school, and their role and their job and related to that has changed a little bit. So that's going to be some of our human resources that have kind of morphed.
Okay, thank you. The next one was over on pillar 3. I thought I was so organized by highlighting everything. Yeah, pillar 3 on page 4. The third line, conduct internal audit and self-assessment of SEL programs and practices. There's under notes, there's a comment about potential need for curricular resources. Is that something that we anticipate this year? Is that something that we're looking forward to as you document the new plan moving into the 25-26 and whatever that plan looks like?
So if you remember, I believe we included it in our end of year presentation last year. We did a comprehensive SEL audit as part of our year 3 work with with the Department of Education, Social, Emotional, and Behavioral MTSS Academy. Very long name. And part of that was actually identifying our existing curriculum and assigning that curriculum and that resource to each of the tiers so that we had a comprehensive SEL curriculum across our MTSS structures. So the curriculum we actually already have in place. So we're not looking to purchase anything new. We're just looking to build a stronger foundation of teacher knowledge on how to implement that curriculum across those multi-tiers.
And an example of that too, I think, like a concrete example, is when we first implemented that with Second Step, it was the guidance counselors who are adjustment counselors in the elementary went in and did those lessons. Now that first tier, classroom teachers are implementing those lessons. So then the tier 2 and tier 3 can be a little bit more focused and targeted based on student need.
Thank you.
And we're constantly learning more about what the curriculum that we've purchased has, and there's constantly updates. So, for example, Panorama this year, they've rolled out their own playbook that is a collection of activities for Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions for students at the elementary, middle, and high school level. So one of the things that we're going to be working on this year is helping our teachers and our counselors become more comfortable with those resources so that they have that additional pool to pull from when they're looking for a way to support a student or a small group of students that happen to be struggling with a particular SEL skill. So we have the resources. We're very lucky, very fortunate to have the resources to be able to train our staff on those curricular materials. It's just a matter of getting comfortable with what we have.
And then the other piece I will add is in talking with middle school teachers and some of the scenarios. So you can imagine with middle school students, some of the scenarios they might not think that they're as up to date or as hip as what's going on. And so they need to make them a little, so those are some of the resources too, to go back to some of those different, when we think of problems of practice that we engage in, they have scenarios, what would you do? And they're, especially when you think of technology, where that can become outdated very quickly. So we need to revamp and use some different resources, the same idea, hitting the same kind of standards, if you will, but some of the scenarios need to change a little bit.
Perfect. So please understand, my questions are not meant to criticize. They're just, I'm interested in the answer, which is why I'm asking these questions. Okay. So on the next question I had is in pillar number 4, also on the resources section. The next to last, investigate curricular DEI programs, comment about identifying and pursue grant funding. Is that something that is actively happening, or is that something that needs to still happen before the end of this?
I think we're always looking for grant funding on any of the extra curriculum kind of initiatives that we do. A lot of times we don't qualify for those grants, but we're always looking for them.
Okay.
We have actually had a number of grant opportunities. This past year, we had a mini grant through our partnership with the MECO Inc. And this year we have that same mini grant again. So I believe that's what it's referring to. So that mini grant, it's short money, but what it'll do is offset the cost of bringing in a PD provider that might be able to support our staff on some of these equity conversations, some of these inclusion conversations. So this year we actually have a mini grant to support bringing in Suffolk University Center for Restorative Justice in teaching some DEI strategies and in classroom de-escalation strategies, community building in the classroom. So we're always looking for those opportunities and finding ways to be able to bring in a university that might be able to bring us up to speed and keep us current in some of those practices.
Thank you. My last I think, comment is the outcomes page, which is page number 3 of the entire packet. So this is my favorite page, if anyone cares, where we talk about objectives in each of the pillars and everything's by June 30th, 2025. Dr. Burrows, to your point, the new IEP was something that was an unexpected outcome. It could have been listed under one of the 2 items that are there. It could be a separate one. What I would love to see when we do the final presentation on this is what were the planned outcomes and how did we get to those, as well as what were the unexpected outcomes? Because I think that would be really interesting for as you know, whatever group is looking to build the next plan. It would be really interesting to look at what were the unexpected outcomes, and if anybody is so interested, then to look into the cause and effect of those unexpected outcomes. But that was just simply a comment that I can imagine there are a lot more unexpected outcomes that aren't documented here, and I hope you take the time to acknowledge them and celebrate them. That's all. Thank you.
Questions? Questions, comments? Thank you, as always, for your attention to detail and this wonderful document. We do need to vote in the 20, there was small typo, 20, it's 2425. Plan for success. So,
I move that the committee accept the year 4, 2024-2025 plan for success as presented.
Second.
great. Moved by Brent, seconded by Nathan. Anyone have any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous, 500. It is passed. And next, we have the superintendent goals for 24-25.
So as the committee moved to a 2-year evaluation process, this one is a little bit more brief because we're in the middle of that cycle. And so just as a reminder that it is a 5-step cycle that starts with the self-assessment and then creating those goals and then implementing the plan and the action steps going forward, having that mid-cycle review, which we did in June when I reported out of where I was at the middle of that 2-year cycle, and then the summative evaluation will take place in June of 25. And at that time, I will report out again on the goals, but I'll also report out on all of the 4 standards, just as everyone that that is certified and is in part of the educator evaluation system. So the goals have continued from last year, although the focus is going to look a little bit different, kind of synonymous with the plan for success. But just to kind of point out a couple of places and then just as a refresher. So we all have to have a professional practice goal, a student learning goal, a district improvement goal if you're the district level. Principals, they have school improvement goals, and then we have others. So the professional practice goal, which is continuing to provide that personalized, differentiated support and mentorship and leadership to anyone that's new. We know that just being here for a year is, you're still new. Many will say the honeymoon phase, where it takes 3 years to where you really know a district and how it operates. And so that support can't just be in year 1, and then anyone that we've added. So when I think about whether it's supporting through mentors with any of our assistant principals that are new, or even with Karen being new as our new business manager for finance and operations. She has a wealth of experience, but she's new to the district, and being able to spend the time for transition and to be able to support her successful entry into Foxboro is really important. So that is all within that first professional practice goal, and the time and energy and effort that should be afforded to supporting our people. We know we have an awesome team, and that goes because we're really a cohesive team and working together and supporting them and leading through them. The student learning goal, which is working to help support and implement MTSS, that multi-tiered system of support that obviously has budget considerations and really supporting a budget and assessing what the needs are and if we're meeting those needs, and then what it looks like in classrooms and listening to teachers and principals and from their professional learning communities, their PLCs, and how that's carried out in the buildings. And then also from a district level is looking at that vertical articulation from building to building, what's working, what we need to refine, and how I can best support that implementation, whether it's the social emotional learning plan when we're implementing that, whether it's looking at the data that's coming back from Panorama, sitting in on those, supporting, and again, the whole child that we talk about, and not just the academic piece. So whether it's mental health teams, at times I'll sit in on those. Looking at our mental health team model that we had at the middle school and refining different practices that have worked well at the middle school and taking those to the elementary. Looking at the restorative practices, supporting principals with those, with training. So really being able to have boots on the ground, if you will, and understanding where we're having challenges and where it's working really well. I need to be able to be versed in that and to be able to support all of our buildings on that, whether it's the universal design for learning and curriculum and the content, and just really being active, whether it's through building visits and being in classrooms. The third goal, which is the district improvement goal, that's closely monitoring, educational equity and looking at that, whether it's from student achievement, whether it's from budget, what that looks like in classrooms, looking at our practices and supporting all components of that, the updates that we do here at school committee, providing that information, whether it's through Plan for Success, whether it's through any of the other information that we gain, such as the K-12 Culture and Climate Survey. You'll have that presentation in October. That always provides a wealth of information that is very action-oriented for us to be able to solidify our practices, or to be able to get the feedback and things that maybe we thought was going well and it took a different turn, or something that was a pleasant surprise for us. So we take that information. It's a lot of time and effort goes into taking a lot of data and disaggregating that. You see a big piece of it, but we have even bigger pieces that we go through. A new goal, which no surprise here, is our Plan for Success as it sunsets. And you see here by October of 2025 to prepare and present that plan, whether it's a 3-year or a 5-year plan. I want to say the October date is one of those, it's a hard timeline because you think, well, the school year's starting, you want a new plan in place. But I want to be realistic we have MASC that's coming in, we have negotiations with many different bargaining units that are going to take place, and to make sure that we give it the time that it deserves, and have a plan that is that living document that we can constantly go back to. To say that we're going to put together a plan and have it ready by June, just to have a plan in place, I think that's doing a disservice to the hard work of many, many people in the district. So that's why it has a target of October. And then obviously we'll continue to update of where we are, because that's going to involve the participation of many different active groups to put that plan together. The other new goal there is, not a new goal, continued goal, but it looks a little bit differently, is we still have our newcomers and working, now it's not the National Guard that's there, instead it's the Commonwealth Care Alliance, CCA, and I work closely with the CCA and the hotel as far as supporting our students, and then the work that needs to take place with the town task force, because it's not just the schools, it's the greater town. And so I continue to meet with our task force at the town level and represent the schools. Jen Rosenberg is the nurse leader. She also attends those meetings with me. So that has been really some eye-opening work to see. We know we have a supportive community, but to see the interconnectedness of all of the different agencies in town working together, the students in our school continuing to enroll. As you know, I mentioned it at the last meeting, we had to open up another kindergarten class at the borough, and that was again funded through the money that's coming in from the state to support that. But that doesn't just happen quickly. It was much easier, honestly, this year, because it didn't happen the night before school started. We had all of last year, and then really working to find out what's worked well and where we can make some adjustments, and then the teachers, honestly, and the supports staff in our buildings for all of our students, because we have many that come as not English speaking their first language, that are aside from the migrant crisis that we've had impact Foxborough as one of the many communities. The last one, which is a new goal, is to successfully conduct and conclude contract negotiations with our professional educators, educational assistants, and many of our other associations. They're listed there. So we had 4 different units that we worked with last year. And this current school year, we have our professional staff, educational assistants, as I just mentioned, but we also have our associations for secretaries, extended day, and food service. And that is, it's a lot on the calendar, if you will, in order to do that, but it's a lot of work and collaboration from all of those groups. So that is a new goal for this school year as well. Any questions or comments?
No, thank you for your attention to detail.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
I was just waiting for somebody else to go first this time. So a couple of things. Thank you for putting this together. It's always exciting to see what you're planning on doing and how you would like to be evaluated. On the 2 new goals, I realize that October 2025 makes sense for all the reasons that you just described. From an evaluation standpoint, it would be useful to see on here which pieces of this, if the evaluations will be done before October 25, certainly this won't be done, but what are the benchmarks or the milestones that you're putting in place to make sure that you can meet the October 2025, that from an evaluation standpoint, we'll be able to evaluate progress toward those milestones for June, July of next year, which is when we'll be doing those evaluations. I would ask the same question on, or I am asking the same question on goal number 5. When do we know which of these negotiations should be complete by the evaluation period, and which ones may spill over until post-evaluation into September? You don't have to answer those tonight, but those would be the 2 things that I would be asking for, because from an evaluation standpoint, I can't hold you to something that you're planning on getting done by October 2025, but I do want to know that you've made progress toward it. And I know that you will. I just would love to know what it is that I'm looking for.
So just to answer, just like off the top of my head on the first one, when we think about the plan for success and that, I think you bring up an excellent point to list here under the action steps. So what comes to my mind is that engaging with focus groups and having that information and identifying what the new pillars at that point would look like by the end of the school year, so for the evaluation period. So we've engaged, we've determined what the length of the plan is, we've engaged in focus groups to be able to have that. So yes, I will flesh that out even more specifically. And then as far as the other groups, in past negotiations, we've been able to ratify that by the end of June. I obviously don't, at this point, but to be able to, again, make that more specific on that, that makes sense.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Would anyone? There we go. It's like you read my mind.
Oh, it's fine. I move that the committee accept Dr. Berdos's goals for 2024-2025 as presented here this evening.
I second.
All right, so moved by Brent, seconded by Michelle. And any further discussion, questions? Nothing? Hearing none. All in favor? And that is passed 5-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Godspeed with those goals. Last but not least, we come to community updates. Do we have any updates?
I just want to acknowledge somebody who comes to every single meeting. I had the great pleasure of attending a gala last Thursday for the LifeWorks organization at the Blue Hills Country Club. And Mr. Garrity was featured in 2 different performances. And both times the audience was on their feet at the end of each performance. So Joe is so dutiful in coming to all of our meetings and helping us spread the good word about what's happening in our schools. I want to acknowledge how much pleasure he and the group at LifeWorks brought to everybody in attendance at the gala. So thank you, Joe.
Well done, Joe. Thanks.
Thank you. Active member of the community.
You are an active member.
Very.
Yes, thank you for all your efforts. Thank you. Anything else? No? Rob?
No.
Okay.
Just wanted to say thank you to everyone involved in starting the school year off smoothly. There's too many people to list, and I'd miss someone, so I'm not going to list anyone, but just a broad thank you to everyone.
Oh, that's great. Michelle?
Yes, I just want to mention that the Foxborough CPAC is going to be putting on a family event. They are going to be doing a hayride and pumpkin picking at Wardsbury Farm on Wednesday, September 25th at 5:30. Flyers will go out soon. If you're planning on joining the event, please register by emailing us at foxboroughcpac@gmail.com, but flyers should be going out soon for that. Thank you.
Sounds so fun. I'm going to email.
Reminder to parents and family members that every year students graduate, and there's new need for parent leadership in various booster capacities, clubs, and support organizations to keep supporting the schools and the students and all the things that they want to do. So if you're a parent who has not yet considered joining one of these, this is kind of the season where they round out their membership, so consider throwing your hat in. It's usually, well, it's always very rewarding and much appreciated.
Thank you. Great point. Dr. Burdos.
I think I've said enough.
Dr. Burrows.
Nothing for me.
Karen.
Nothing from me tonight.
Yasmin had to leave us, I'm sure. We went over a little bit, so which we apologize for, but it was great having her, great energy, and hats off to her for doing something new and bringing that to the high school. That's amazing. So I have a couple of community updates. First one's a personal one. Over the weekend, my amazing daughter got married to her new amazing husband, so that was very exciting. We went on your update, during your superintendent update, I wanted to piggyback that CPR classes are so important, and I love that you pointed out that we do offer it at the high school. It is also offered through Foxborough Recreation too, so I want to say that, and the YMCA. And speaking about recreation, they do need desperately volunteers, students of all ages, to help with the Halloween parade, which is a humongous community event on October 26th. So anybody looking for NHS, community warriors, confirmation, any kind of wonderful volunteers, they desperately need it through the town of Foxborough. And last but not least, so excited and thrilled and honored to be hosting the Spanish exchange student. We've had so much fun, and it's only been a day and a half. So thank you all for all the work that went into that. And now I will entertain
adjourn.
a motion to adjourn, which was motioned by Rob.
I'll second.
Seconded by Brent. All in favor? All right, unanimous. Good night.
Thanks.